Okay. I'm Steve Clemons. I run the foreign policy programs here at the New America Foundation. I'm here with James Glassman, who's Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy. Jim just gave a talk called Public Diplomacy 2.0 at the New America Foundation, and I was fascinated by what you're doing, Jim. I think it's outstanding. Instead of PD 2.0, I sort of want to call it Facebook, Twitter diplomacy. Can you tell us a little bit about what your big themes are?
Well, Public Diplomacy 2.0, or Facebook, Twitter diplomacy, is a new approach to public diplomacy. The idea is that we want to be a facilitator and a convener of a giant global conversation. That we want to exploit the technologies that enable people to have a kind of interactivity which never really existed before. And through these conversations, number one, we think our image will improve, but that's really minor. More important, we will be able to push back against some of the threats that we face from terrorism and help young people develop alternatives to the threats that we see today.
So you're talking about creating environments where people discuss, debate, throw out wacky ideas. This sounds very risky to me, and from a government, not to sort of ascribe too much blame to the Bush administration, because I'd also blame the Clinton administration for it, that kind of trust in civic discourse is not something I've seen many governments embrace.
Well, we feel that unless we embrace that kind of trust, nobody's going to listen to us. I mean, who wants to listen to a government today? To hear us, dictate to them what they ought to be thinking or how wonderful we are. People don't want to listen to that, especially our target audience in much of what we do in counterterrorism, which is young people. They want to be part of a conversation in which they are respected. And what's great is that we can use these tools to produce that kind of conversation. So what we're doing in New York, for example, bringing together 24
or Facebook,
on
Columbia Law School, Twitter, YouTube, what is it,
Howcast. Bringing together these groups to talk about ways to enable organizations that have some internet presence or would like to have an internet presence to help them to build counter movements against violence, against oppression, against extremism. Rather than sort of sitting back and simply issuing proclamations about how bad Al-Qaeda is. That doesn't seem to work.
Some of the unfortunate history of the last few years in message management has been the Department of Defense issue of trying to issue talking points to former generals that were on CNN or Fox News. We had the Department of Education that had their favorite blogger that they were sending stuff out to. This is a radical departure, it seems to me. I mean, were these other episodes just sort of mistakes along the way that the government has finally gotten over? Have they embraced this sort of riskier, fascinating environment of public diplomacy 2.0 that you've reflected? Where are your comrades in the administration with what you're doing?
Well, let me say, I don't want to characterize any of the possible mistakes that you referred to earlier, but I would say this, that it's been a struggle over the last 7 or 8 years to really understand this world, this battle of ideas that we're in. And I think over the last few years, even before I got there, we were moving in this direction. And do other people in the government know about it, understand it? I think they do. I think people that I talk to at DOD understand this very well, that the old methods of trying to kind of own some group and process or broadcast messages through that group, forget it. That kind of thing is not going to work.
It sounds kind of Obama-esque, if I may say so.
Well, I think that Barack Obama's campaign absolutely made use of this, and I think we saw in that campaign it wasn't a complete kind of relinquishing of all control. I mean, there were messages that were certainly put out, but the idea was, in order to communicate on a mass basis and to effectively communicate, you can't simply do it by direction. It's got to be done much more by indirection, by finding private sector partners that agree with you, or that generally agree with you, that may disagree on some things, not being too meticulous about that, which can sometimes cause us problems with Congress, but and by, as I say, engaging in this broader conversation. That's the way we're going to win.
Well, I just want to say, Jim, I've known you for a long time as a publisher, a private sector guy, a think tank guy, and you've always sort of looked at the positive benefits of building an infrastructure of technology and all of that to raise serious debate and discourse. I want to thank you. I'm very excited by what you're doing.
Good. Well, thank you.
So surprised by it today, and I was thrilled.
Good.
So thanks for being here.
That.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.